Hey, that logo says Bronze and Modern Gods. That means that's this show, and I am John.
And I'm Richard.
Just a reminder, we are not on Telegram. If you get any messages from anyone saying, message me, text me on Telegram, tell them where to go. I think we handled it. I think we banned the scammy
We're not on Snapchat either. So if you see a request from Snapchat from one of us, you're not going to see anything that you really want to see.
We are, however, on Friendster and MySpace. If you see us there, in the meantime, why don't you follow us where we really are at Facebook and Instagram at Bronze and Modern Gods, or the website bronzeandmoderngods.com. For all the new people, hi, welcome. If you like this video, please hit like, and if you hate it, hit subscribe. We don't care.
If you hate it, hit subscribe.
Yeah. Why not?
Sure.
Let's see who falls for that. You know how we do this. If you're a regular, we've got our underrated books of the week, the 25-year rule, where we head back to 1997, and we have a lot of viewer mail today. But let's get started with our hot book of the week. Richard, what is it?
Our hot book this week is Fear number 10, or some people call it Adventure into Fear. This is the first solo Man-Thing. His first comic book appearance was as a guest star in the Quasar strip in Astonishing Tales number 12.
Can I derail you for a second?
Sure.
Astonishing Tales, Quasar, started off with Dr. Doom in the split book for the first 8 issues. Do you have those?
I do.
Okay, so I've never heard you talk about the first Dr. Doom solo series in Astonishing Tales, so I'm just curious if you had those.
I think I have all of them at this point.
Hey, why are we talking about this, John? We're talking about Man-Thing.
Yeah, this book is penciled by Howard Chaykin, which I was really surprised. I haven't seen any of his early works, and this is definitely something different.
Well, here is the thing. Howard Chaykin was doing really rough layouts then. He was working for DC on a book called Sword and Sorcery. And according to the Grand Comics database, this was laid out by Howard Chaykin and inked by Gray Morrow. And if you know Gray Morrow's work, boy, he smothers pencils. Howard Chaykin seems to always get smothered by inkers like Tony Duzingia, however you say his name, Tom Palmer. But yeah, this apparently was penciled by Howie.
Yeah, and what's the reason why there's interest behind this book right now, John?
It's the first solo appearance of the Man-Thing. It is not the first Steve Gerber issue, who is the writer most closely associated with the Man-Thing. That would be the next issue, issue 11. And this was the beginning of his solo series. I love the fact that they gave an unthinking, unfeeling, no dialogue swamp creature his own series, but I'll be darned if Steve Gerber didn't find a way to make it run for a few years. So people are picking this up because we know Man-Thing is going to be part of Werewolf by Night on Disney Plus next month. How much of a part of that, we don't know yet, but this is a tough book in grade.
There is really few books in the high grades for sale. There was a 9.8 sale earlier this May for $31.20. But a more recent 9.6 sale this month went for $23.69. So I think if a 9.8 was to come up now, we'd see some gains in that book.
Out of 435 copies of this on the CGC census, only 15 of those are 9.8s. And I imagine a few of those are in the hands of picture frame collectors, because this is one of those infamous Marvel picture frame covers. So lots of reasons to like this book.
I have to ask you, is Man-Thing a direct copy of Swamp Thing?
Well, Swamp Thing was first. I believe House of Secrets 92 came first, but it was like a dead heat, because Man-Thing, of course, first appeared in Savage Tales #1. So I've read stuff in the past from people that were involved back then that it was just one of those massive coincidences. If you want to really get technical, they're both ripoffs of the Heap, which was a character in the 40s. So, I don't think anybody's gonna get into too much of a debate over who came first, when it's kind of the same thing with Doom Patrol and the X-Men. They kind of came out the same time. They were both being worked on at the same time. And, it's just one of those comic book coinkydinks. Time to head over to your favorite topic and mine, viewer mail.
You've got mail.
Let's start off with a really excellent, lengthy piece of viewer mail from the user who calls himself Only Grodd. Surely not the super intelligent gorilla from Gorilla City, Richard.
Gorilla Grodd.
I know. Obviously taking us to task over our disbelief that that Captain Marvel Jr. that's being auctioned this week is truly a CGC 9.9. By the way, the auction's only at 5,700 with 2 days left. I wonder what it's really going to go for. But
Yep.
Grodd writes, first, the crux of your argument on the channel here seems to be more focused on the impossibility of a 9.9 and the comparison to modern books. These both couldn't be farther from the truth. Books denoted mint from some of these collections were noted by third-party graders long before CGC. It's not just a CGC grading phenomena. Comic Book Marketplace and the Comics Buyer's Guide is goldmine of great articles pre-CGC. Mint Golden Age books, while quite rare, most certainly exist. I've owned 1 or 2 myself over the years. Second, this book was graded when CGC was new during the year 2000. During that time, CGC tended to have more detailed graded notes, especially for the much higher graded books. I can't say how bad that right bottom front corner crease was, or the top back cover small crunch, as it's very hard to see on the scan. I can see what looks like a very slight bindery tear at the top back cover. CGC is very loose on that type of defect, as that is considered more of a factory in the process type of defect. Maybe that's why maybe that's what they're talking about. Not sure unless I see the book in hand. I'm speculating a bit here. Now, that's not to say there are some very poorly graded 9.8 or 9.9s out there. We've all seen bad examples from CGC, and I don't always agree to some of the more consistent loose grading surrounding certain defects either. Over the years, CGC standards have most certainly loosened and tightened depending on the year. Best. First off, I want to thank Grodd for this comment. I thought it was great. I thought it was very nice and respectful way of saying you guys are full of it. I have no problem with that. It's when people drive by and be like, "You're morons," and I'm like, "Okay, how are we morons? Tell us how." And then no reply to that. That doesn't work. This works. I agree, Grodd. Comparing the grading of a Golden Age book to a modern book was wrong. Whether we know this officially or not, we know they are indeed graded differently. There is that Golden Age curve, right, Richard?
Oh, you're gonna make me talk, aren't you?
Well, you have feelings about this.
I do.
You're very binary here.
I am an engineer by trade. I deal in absolutes. I don't deal in a lot of human objective numbers, let's say. So to me, if it says it's 5 inches long, it's 5 inches long, whether it was made today or if it was made 50 years ago. But that's taking it from an engineering standpoint. And one of the things that I realized as we've been talking through this, and thank you, Grodd, for your comment, it definitely helped me think about this, is that these books are not graded by computers, at least not yet. These books are graded by people. And those people have flexibility in what they consider to be flaws and what the boundaries of a particular grade are. And that seems to be historically very lenient for Golden Age books. And for some, I can understand why. They're very rare, especially in the higher grades. And they want to reward those books that do make it to those higher grades. My concern, though, is what happens if, this book that we're talking about had a dust shadow and it had some other flaws in it, which it still got a 9.9. It got that grade, so I'm not debating that. But what happens when a book comes, somebody finds a book that doesn't have a dust shadow and it doesn't have those flaws in it? Is it a 10? Is it a 10.5? You run into the risk when you do grade on a curve that something is going to break your curve in the future. And that's what I'm thinking from these books. I also have to acknowledge CGC is just one entity when it comes to grading, and there was life before CGC, And
As
as
Rod says correctly, I mean, we saw these articles back in the day about the Mile High and Edgar Church stuff. Yeah, for
Oh,
sure.
sure. And we live kind of in a bubble here, thinking, CGC is the ultimate arbiter of these grades, and it's not. It's just the most recent. And the different grading scales that have been around since collection has been collecting comics has been a thing. Would definitely these golden age books benefit from that curve.
This is an honest question. This is not, confrontational. Tell me this, you guys. This is an honest question for me. We all say, oh, we know that these golden age books are graded on a different curve and a different standard. Can someone point to some sort of official statement from CGC on their policy here? Because I mean, it's something we all quote know, but this points back to the lack of transparency in CGC's grading policies. And, I'm asking, is there something out there where they've come out and said, yes, we do this? Um, Back to this book specifically, the Captain Marvel Jr. 9.9 book. How can a book with a small crunch on the back cover, per the grader's notes, be a 9.9 in any age? I don't have the book in hand. We've not seen a scan of the interior cover. I Is the crunch just on the outer cover? Did that happen magically somehow? I don't know. But doesn't that give you pause?
It
But
does, yeah.
Rod, good point on the bindery tear. Maybe they're considering that the bindery tear, because these are old graders notes from the year 2000. Another point. This book was obviously reholdered because it's got a new label.
Mhm.
How can this book have been reholdered and kept the same grade and notes from the year 2000? Can you get away with that, Richard, if you reholder a book?
No, I probably not. This book,
Not
like a lot of the high grade books that CGC grades from different pedigrees and other high end books, it's the CGC's benefit to grade these books as high as possible because it gives them credibility as a platform. So, short of a bullet hole in the cover of this thing, it was not going to get any grade other than what it originally had. Um,
well, you're speculating now. Let's be fair.
yeah, that's
Um,
true. This
because
is
this
all
book
speculation. Yeah.
because this book was graded in the year 2000. Now, do they have an impetus to keep that grade in the year 2022? Maybe. It's gotten some press, it's
Yeah.
gotten some notoriety out there, so maybe so. One Another thing that you guys pointed out is where I said something about that the interior cover dictates the grade. We talk off the top of our heads here, guys. We don't have a script. We have some notes, but we don't have a script. And yes, of course, I know that the entire book is taken into account when it's given a grade. And in fact, I even said not only does the interior cover have to be a 9.9, but every single interior page as well. I did make that point. But after all these comments from us, we hear you. We know when we're possibly wrong. My only question and my only request to you guys is when we're wrong, tell us why. Don't just say, you guys are idiots, morons, newbies, whatever. Why? And if you can't answer that, maybe rethink it. All right, moving on to more viewer mail. Richard, what is your first piece of viewer mail?
My first piece is from Jimmy Lee. What would be interesting is if a grading company could grade a comic so you could still read it, like putting a protective plastic on each page so you can turn the pages. That would be a cool idea. I don't see that being practical because it would still be flexible and potentially damaged from the use of it. You're still turning, you're still flexing that spine, and some books just can't handle that. I could
Right.
see though in the process of doing grading, um, grading companies scanning each page of the book and providing a PDF or some other kind of interactive digital version of the original book. They're counting the pages and they're flipping through the book to validate it's all there. You look
That
very
scares
skeptical, John.
the crap out of me. That scares me. We're getting finger bend notes now with them just counting the pages. God forbid they start slamming books down on scanners because
Yeah,
they're pressed.
I don't think maybe that everyone would want that. I mean, if you had a book that is a family heirloom, for example, your dad gave it to you, you just want to protect it, but you still want to have an opportunity to read it, I wouldn't mind taking the chance to have someone full, scan each individual pages. They have professional archival quality book scanners that can handle this with minimal amount of damage to the book. And maybe somebody would benefit from something like that.
But let's also keep in mind it's 2022 and most of these books have been scanned already. If you
They
know
have,
where to look, you can find scans of everything. So,
they have, but
um,
they don't have the coupon that was filled up by your dad, at
no, or the
age
letters. I miss
22.
letters pages. I want the letters pages. I want the bullpens. I do want those.
Yeah.
Uh, my first piece of viewer mail is from Thomas Johnson, who emailed us at bronzeandmoderngods@gmail.com. Gentlemen, in a similar vein to comics being deconstructed or slabbed by CGC as single pages, a comparable thing has been happening since 2014 with comic book issues being cut to ribbons in order to make trading cards featuring original comic panels. It appears credit is due to Rittenhouse Archives being the first to run with the idea of making unique insert cards for products they released beginning in 2014. The Upper Deck Company then picked up the scissors for their 2017 Spider-Man Fleer Ultra cards, cutting away at a range of 23 issues from Amazing Spider-Man number 3 to 700, Secret Wars 8, and Ultimate Fallout 4. Sorry, Richard. They make for interesting trading cards, but the comic collector in me feels bad about the fate of the Golden Age and Silver Age comics that I wish were complete and in my collection. I am indifferent when it comes to comics of a more recent vintage. What are your opinions? Here are a couple examples. Here's an Avengers one where they actually cut a panel out of a Silver Age Avengers issue and slammed it into a card.
Mhm.
Here is a Golden Age example from
Mm,
Captain America Comics.
mm,
They cut up the following Golden Age books to do this. All Winners Comics number 7 and 8, Captain America Comics 34, 35, and 44, Human Torch number 15 and number 36, and Men's Adventures number 27.
oh,
Holy crap, how did we not know this was happening?
I blissfully. That's all I have to say. I also have to say, Thomas Johnson, you are a great writer. I love the imagery you built with these pick up the scissors for their 2017 Spider-Man Fleer Ultra comics. Very lyrical. I just don't understand. Well, I can understand because there are different people out there, different types of collectors. Some people are really attracted to this kind of stuff, and there are people who will serve that market by taking these rare books and chopping them to pieces to sell them piecemeal to the people who are out there. Obviously, there's like I said, a market for this. It's not the market that I want to support, but if that's your thing and you're collecting and you want to collect these pieces of comic books, then that's on you. But me personally, I think this is defacing comics in general.
I mean, let's speculate. Why not? This is an entertainment podcast, people. Speculation happens.
Are you not entertained?
Are you not entertained yet? Let's just assume the All Winners number 7 was already shredded to bits. No covers. It's missing 6 wraps.
Mhm.
A rat chewed it. I would still want it complete as much as it was. I wouldn't want it cut up. Am I old? Am I old fashioned? Am I not looking at the future here? I'm open to hearing dissent.
Mhm. Well, we talked about this last time. You're a comic book collector. You collect comic books. You don't collect pieces of comic books. It's like people who collect racehorses. You don't collect pieces of racehorses. You collect the whole thing. And
I put glue.
so that's just not your thing. Like I say, and I don't want to impinge on anyone's view of the hobby. If that's what you do, then that's up to you. Go ahead and collect pieces of comics. That's great for if it makes you happy. I personally, and John, I believe does as well, thinks that keeping these pieces of history as one unit is more beneficial than selling it piecemeal and making what appears to be a profit.
I'm going to try to look at the other side. I'm 23 years old, and I love collecting cards and I love collecting comics. And I know I will never, ever in a million years in my 23-year-old mind be able to afford a copy of a Captain America comic from the Golden Age.
Mhm.
Would I be super excited and pumped that I got one of these cards with a piece of that book randomly? Yeah, I probably would be. Um, so I'm trying to look at the other side of it.
Mhm.
I'm looking at it through my lens of today, of decades of collecting, and I'm trying to look through it from a younger perspective that maybe this would be exciting. But boy, it is just a bummer to me.
It's tough. It's tough. It's tough to look at. It's tough to, it's like somebody taking a classic Ferrari and chopping it into pieces and selling you the tire, the steering wheel, the hood. Um, you may be able to make more money that way. Um, but is it really who is it serving when you do something like that? When you take a piece of, a classic comic book and you dissect it and sell the pieces. And Thomas is talking about he doesn't feel the same way towards modern books, and I can understand that. I mean, there are 180,000 copies of Ultimate Fallout 4, for example.
Yeah.
It's defacing one or two copies isn't going to be a big deal. But if you look at the census for some of those Golden Age books, there is just a small number available, and you are basically reducing that number of available copies by one by chopping up a book to sell it piecemeal.
Wartime Captain America comics, 34, 35, 44. They are not plentiful.
Mm.
There were paper drives. The ravages of 75 years have gone by. So to cut one surviving one up in order to spur sales of a box of cards and hope that you win the lottery, and even that, if you look, these cards are on eBay for $80. So it's not like there's a lot of money involved here. And boy, the promotion's awful. We never even heard of this.
Yeah, really, you would think even just in horror we would have heard about it by now.
Right? What do you guys think? As always, come at us in the comments. Let us know pros and cons. But I think we should go back to the Captain Marvel 9.9, Richard, with your next piece of your mail.
My next piece is from A100. The Edgar Church comics were stored in ideal conditions for paper quality. The 9.9 was a part of the Edgar Church um, collection. It was cool, dry, and dark, and in stacks which provided compression. All very important things for quality. So regardless of grade, there's no doubt the CM Junior's books pages are like new as possible for a comic that old. No argon chamber needed. There was just likely beneficial off gassing going on, which is also important. In the 1970s, the paper death of comics and big little books was projected for less than 50 years in the future. Here we are in 2022, and we see that the aging can and has been slowed considerably in so many cases, with supple paper not being unusual. Yeah, this I have no doubt that this book is in the upper echelon of golden age high end books in general. The Edgar Church collection has had so many outstanding books in it. Like the Promise collection, it is well renowned for
And
having
overgraded.
and overgraded.
Oops, sorry.
Um, no, well, um, but I still have trouble with considering a book that has graders notes on it as to the flaws being in getting a 9.9 grade, and that's just me. It's something that has happened. It is not an outlier. There are other books that have gotten extremely high grades that I would question. I have some books in my collection that I look at the grade and I go, that's a gift grade. Somebody was really on the sauce when they graded that one. Um, but I have respect for the Edgar Church books, and I think that it is a unique set of circumstances that make the book, preserve the book as well as it has. And hopefully, I would love to see another collection show up here in the next few years, where the books are even in better quality, and see how the grading industry deals with those books.
Well, we've had Chuck Rosansky from Mile High on the show
Mhm.
before, talked about the Edgar Church discovery. Maybe we should ask him what he thinks of
That's a
this
great idea.
book
That
and
is
this.
a Man,
Let
you
me
are full of great ideas.
I was due. I was due. My next piece of viewer mail is from Toby Shaver, who emailed us at bronzeandmoderngods@gmail.com. Toby writes, "Hey guys, love the show." Thank you, Toby.
Thank you.
So, ever since they announced the Todd McFarlane CGC signing, there seems to be a lot more interest in some more of his more iconic stuff. I've been sitting on a Batman 423. Please don't do that. Get off that. Don't sit on it. That is probably a 9.6, 9.8 candidate with the press. Seems like a good opportunity to send it in, but I don't know much about signed books and their long-term value. Can you guys share your thoughts? Well, we're old. You know how we feel about signed books.
Well, maybe
But
he doesn't.
okay, I'm not a fan of signed books. I am absolutely raising my hand and saying, I know I'm really in the minority here. Some
Mhm.
people love Stan Lee scribbling all over their book. I do not. But you're asking me what I think about Batman 423 sending it in to get signed by Todd McFarlane. Yes, as Susie Orman would say, you are approved, 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 approved. Um, CGC 9.8, an unsigned copy. The 90-day average is $2,925. There are only 53 9.8 signed copies on the census. Now, there's a little asterisk here. We don't know how many of those 53 are actually signed by Todd. A lot of them are signed by Jim Starlin, who was the writer of
Okay.
that issue. Uh, and I don't know. It seems like that's a really low census number for a yellow label 9.8. If a blue label 9.8 is going for almost 3K, dude, if you think this is a slam dunk 9698 with Todd, hopefully not ruining it when he signs it by grabbing it with his man hands, I say go for it. I don't, it's $120 and some change to get it signed. Do it.
Yeah, there's a premium for some artists to sign their work, and Todd is definitely one of those artists. I know people they take things that like ASM 300, 301, Spawn, this Batman. There are a lot of books that people will pay the fee that Todd charges, and will make a profit on the back end. I also have to say Todd is a showman. They've televised. They've streamed
They broadcast it.
broadcast, yes, on videotape. Um, they've streamed some of his signing events in the past, and it's an event. You are part of that event, and you get your book signed by Todd. And I really have to say he makes some of these signings I think are opportunistic. I think Todd's makes it special, and he charges for it, which I have no problem with it at
Custom
all.
label, Todd label now.
Yeah, it's
I,
it's impressive.
the only downside I possibly see here, Toby, is that 500 other people have the same idea you have. And so
Mhm.
all of a sudden there is a flood of Batman 423 9.8 yellow labels out there. But I think this is a slam dunk 3K deal for
I
you.
I I do it. I do it. No hesitation.
All right. What's your next piece of your mail?
My next piece is from Ancient Comic Guy.
Did I write this?
I was wondering if you did. Um, some Grail books are so expensive, most collectors cannot afford them. The mentality of buying a single page is owning a part of history is better than nothing. Including oddball titles such as 13 makes a collection diversified, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, no, I don't. I guess I don't have a problem with collectors who are interested in collecting single pages. If that's your thing, if all of a sudden there is a single page of Amazing Fantasy 15 or Batman #1, and you want to buy that, that's great. If that's how you want to do your collection, that's on you, because ultimately you're the person you're making happy with your purchases. It's the person on the other end of the transaction who may be opportunistic and taking a perfectly good, Detective Comics 27 and razoring it out because he could sell it more per page than he can get for the whole book. That I take issue with. So if you want to collect single pages, there are books that I wouldn't mind having single pages of. And sometimes they come across and I look at them. There was a Batman 3 that someone had 6 pages from. Um, they were all edged. So they were smaller than it was interesting.
Did it
Um,
have a purple label?
no, they were just individual pages. They were just
Yeah, but
individual
they were
pages.
trimmed.
Um, they were trimmed, but they were loose. It was not graded.
Purple label, man. If you're
Yeah,
altering the book in
it,
any way,
yeah, it would be purple label. But still, it was interesting. It's Batman 3. I'm never going to buy a Batman 3. It would be nice to have it decorating my office.
I saw a page from Captain America Comics #1 with Red Skull on it, and I was like, I can't do it. I don't know. I just I would rather I think like if that was being $1,000 or $3,000 for a page, I'd rather put that money away and just keep saving and trying to get a 1 or a 1.8.
Yeah, it wasn't very expensive. I know what I'm going to get you for Christmas.
Captain America Comics #1?
I'm going to get you one panel at a time. It's going to be like
Hey, guess what it's time for? The 25-year rule. Yeah, we're going to gloss right past that and go right to the 25-year rule. Richard, we were texting about this earlier
Mhm.
because I've never seen this before.
I have not
And
either.
it struck me as, why isn't this book a bigger deal? It is Blade #1 from 1997. This appears to be a one-shot released to promote the movie with our man Wesley Snipes, famous actor, tax avoider. Can't find much about this book. The listing on the Grand Comics database just has the cover and no credits. Um, some auction listings, because it's on eBay right now, they imply that it may have been a San Diego Comic-Con giveaway. There's no UPC on the front cover, so
Mm.
but let's look at this book. Cool Wesley Snipes photo cover as Wesley as Blade there, right?
Yeah, I think it's great.
The credits on the CGC slab, the slab copies I've seen, say this book was written by Marv Wolfman and drawn by Gene Colan. Now, those are the two that created Blade in Tomb of Dracula #10. So is this book a reprint of like Blade stories from the 70s, or is it a new story? Because both Marv and Gene were still around in 1997 doing stuff with Marvel. Even Gene Colan was doing Daredevil and things like that. Does anyone out there know anything about this book? Tell us in the comments. I do know
Yeah.
this. A CGC 9.6 sold in March of this year for $130. Seems like a
I'd
bargain.
love to know more. That does seem like a bargain for such a difficult book to find. You may have
I've never
stumbled on
seen
something.
this. Yeah, so let us know. This is a mystery to us. Is it a Comic-Con giveaway? Is it something that was given away in movie theaters maybe? Let us know, please, if you know for sure. Meanwhile, it's time for underrated books of the week. Richard, what do you have?
My pick this week is Fantastic Four number 32, which is the second appearance of the Super Skrull. His first appearance was in a much more expensive Fantastic Four number 18, which is a great book if you can afford it. The cheapest version our copy I saw on eBay is over $300. So, yeah, it was I still want this book. I still want 18, but 32, like I said, is the second appearance. It's the next best thing. Secret Invasion is coming. It's going to feature Skrulls more prominently. I could see Skrulls being a antagonist in not only that movie but potentially future movies as well. There is a possibility, and I'm looking at this from a speculation standpoint. There's always a possibility that he'll show up one of the Fantastic Four movies. He's definitely a villain tied to the Fantastic Four, and he's got superpowers from each of the four members, and he's designed to be a foil for them. So he's, if he's going to show up, it's going to be in. I'm sure there's going to be more than one Fantastic Four movie. So
Knock
not well. Hopefully, better than the Fox movies. This book is affordable. Take a chance on it. You can find Raws for it on eBay for around $70. There was a recent sale for 9.6 in 2021 for $2,500.
really?
And yeah, and it follows my rule of buy any Fantastic Four book from issue 50 and below. I think there's value in every one of those single issues. Obviously, there are certain key number books in that range, but I think they're a safe bet to buy every one of those books. And they're never not printing any more of them, and they are going to be long-term collectors items and have a long-term value.
I would amend that to say buy any Fantastic Four book issue 102 or below. Stan and Jack. If they're a Stan
Oh,
and
okay.
Jack book, it's going to be, to be fair, 50 and below, you're right. That's really the classic era when, with the exception of Black Panther and 52,
Mhm.
most of the concepts and introductions were made in those issues. But, there's still some stuff in the back 50, the monocle.
uh, yeah,
Well,
there is value in there. I forgot about 52. I may
yeah.
amend it to be 52 and back.
Wyatt Wingfoot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah, you're right. Um, I think a lot of the iconic villains, um, are their first appearances are in that run, that
Oh, for
first
sure.
50.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for the first appearance of a variety of different villains, you're going to want to focus on those first 50. But there's tons of really good books in all the way up to 102. A lot of Doom appearances, which I'm a big fan of, and a lot of really good covers. I mean, just amazing covers that Kirby did. Is definitely worth your pickup.
Agatha Harkness is issue
Yes.
90, yeah, or something. Yes, yes.
Mhm.
Uh, my underrated book is in response to me using Crossfire, the series, as my underrated book last week. I think I opened
Yeah.
up a door. I think I opened up a Pandora's box because our good friend Jason Brownell writes,
Hey,
John,
Jason.
if you're doing an underrated series, how are you not giving Quasar his due? Newer viewers won't know the weekly mention of your love for the character. That's true. I haven't mentioned Quasar in a while. I bought the full run on your constant recommendation, but you have never given the full run the underrated treatment, only one single issue of the first Venomized cover. Jason, you're right. You've asked for it. Here it is. My underrated book this week is Quasar, the series. Quasar ran for 60 issues between 1989 and 1994. That entire run, minus one fill-in issue written by Ron Mars, was written by Mark Gruenwald, probably my favorite Marvel writer. Yes, above Stan. I'm
Ooh.
saying it. I'm putting it out there. Now, Quasar got off to a rough start. I will say the first 13 issues are kind of rough. I can see why it was almost canceled. Mark could see why it was almost canceled and got a fire lit under his butt and started a little series within mini series within a series called Journey into Mystery with covers by Jim Lee, Todd McFarlane, just trying to boost sales. And that's when the story kicks into gear. So when you read this, the first 12 issues or so, you're like, okay, yeah, all right, good. Stick with it because then it gets serious. Greg Capullo comes on board. Yes, that Greg Capullo as penciler. And Cosmos in Collision is a great story that all the first 2 years of the book culminate in this big cosmic adventure. I will not spoil it for you. This series has a few keys in it. It has that first Venomized cover where you can see the worlds of What If. You see a little Venomized Thor there, the first time that ever happened. The first appearance of Infinity is part of the Cosmos in Collision. And there is a crossover with a certain red garb speedster from another universe who can only recall his name as being something like Buried Alien. Who could that be?
Really?
Yes.
Oh, that's funny.
Obviously, Mark Grunwald loved The Flash and loved DC Comics. And you see he saved Barry Allen. He's in the Marvel Universe now. I won't spoil it for you, but you need to read this book. And let's not forget this classic cover of Quasar, which is an homage to Demi Moore's famous Vanity Fair cover, also homaged by John Byrne on She-Hulk.
Mhm.
Why is Quasar pregnant? I'm not going to spoil it for you. You got to read this book. Quasar is available full runs on eBay for less than $100. I say if you love comics, you love reading comics, you want a good run that you'll finish. If you love the New Universe DP7, it gets resolved in Quasar. The whole new universe comes over to the Marvel universe in Quasar.
I did not know that.
Yes. So many reasons. Mark Grunwald loved comics. He loved comics, and every panel, cutout or not, of this series oozes love of the medium. So my underrated book this week is indeed Quasar.
Excellent. Excellent.
Is that all you have to say?
No, it's a good pick. It's definitely a John pick.
Yes. So thank you, Jason. Thank you. And on that note, we're going to wrap it up for this week. Richard, remind everyone where they can find us, please.
They can find us at Bronze and Modern Gods on Facebook and Instagram, or bronzeandmoderngods.com, the website.
And we will catch you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Everybody stay safe.